Everyone says, learn AI tools. Nobody tells you which ones or how. Here's the exact 90-day curriculum that makes you valuable. Welcome to the podcast, Surviving AI with Carlo Thompson.
Yeah, that's quite the promise right out of the gate.
I know, right? But that is the exact verbatim hook from the top of this highly anticipated episode 15 playbook on the AI skill stack that we are jumping into today. And I'm incredibly excited because we are doing a massive deep dive into a huge stack of sources here.
We really are. We've got 2025 and 2026 labor market reports, data from the World Economic Forum, LinkedIn's economic graph,
Right.
Robert Half salary trends, and comprehensive certification guides. It's a lot to get through.
It is a lot. But our goal today is it's purely tactical. I want to hand you, the listener, a literal survival guide. We're going to map out an exact 90-day blueprint, like a step-by-step curriculum to make you absolutely indispensable in your career right now.
Which is needed because, let's be honest, the narrative out there is just totally chaotic.
Yeah. Exactly. You're told, you need to master artificial intelligence. But there is so much noise and conflicting advice. So we're going to cut through all of that and give you the actionable steps you need to take today to build a highly lucrative, highly secure skill stack.
And that blueprint is critically important right now because, well, we really need to ground this discussion in reality first.
Yeah.
The labor market has undergone what can only be described as a violent structural realignment. I mean, the days of simply playing around with chatbots, figuring out a few clever text prompts, and expecting a massive raise.
Yeah, that's over.
Those days are completely over. The window for being rewarded simply for, early adoption, it's shut. It is firmly shut.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we can give you the 90-day plan, we have to look at the battlefield you're actually walking into. Why is a specific, rigorous plan so desperately necessary right now?
Wow.
Like, what is the data actually telling us about the 2026 job market? Because it feels like everyone is just on edge right now.
And they are on edge for a very, very good reason. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the macro data from the structural realignment report and the latest challenger data, it's genuinely chilling.
Okay, lay it on us.
Broad hiring across advanced economies is down 20% from pre-pandemic baselines.
20%, wow.
Yeah. And in 2025, we saw roughly 55,000 jobs directly, unequivocally lost to AI.
Right, directly replaced.
Exactly. And when you factor in broader AI-adjacent restructuring, companies reallocating headcount to pay for massive compute costs or shrinking departments because workflows just became more efficient, that number swells to over 100,000 jobs lost.
And it's not slowing down as we move deeper into 2026, is it?
Not at all. I mean, in just the first 2 months of 2026, we are already at 30,000 plus jobs lost.
Jeez.
But perhaps the most alarming statistic for you, the professional trying to navigate this transition, is the data on entry-level positions. 21% of companies have entirely stopped hiring entry-level workers due to AI.
Wait, 21% of companies just done hiring entry-level?
Completely done. Let me repeat that because it's so important. More than 1 in 5 companies have simply deleted the bottom rung of the corporate ladder.
That is a staggering statistic that completely rewrites how you enter a career path. You can't just, come in, do the grunt work to learn the ropes and work your way up anymore.
Exactly. And half of all companies surveyed expect to stop entry-level hiring entirely by 2027. You see the epicenter of this shockwave most clearly in software development right now.
Yeah, the coding space is getting hit hard.
Very hard. With the launches of Claude Code and OpenAI Codex, we aren't just looking at tools that assist developers anymore. Like, remember the early versions of GitHub Copilot?
Right, it was like a really smart autocomplete.
Exactly. It guessed the next line of code you wanted to write. Claude Code and Codex are fundamentally different. They are autonomous to a significant degree.
They just do the work.
Yeah, you give them a code base, a terminal, and a goal, and they go to work. They write the code, they run the tests, they read the error logs, they debug themselves, and they iterate. They are handling the exact routine, repetitive coding tasks, the boilerplate generation, and the bug hunting that used to be the training ground for junior developers.
Which explains the hiring freeze.
As a direct result, junior developer hiring has dropped sharply. The industry doesn't need people to write basic boilerplate code anymore. The machine does it faster, cheaper, and without needing a coffee break.
Right. And it's so easy to hear that and feel an overwhelming sense of dread. But here is how we reframe this, okay? This isn't a meteorite hitting the dinosaurs.
Okay.
It's the invention of the tractor. Yes, the manual labor of digging the ditch changes entirely, but the farm still needs to be run. The crops still need to be planted, harvested, and sold.
Sure.
And if we look at the Gartner report in our sources, it explicitly shows that 32 million jobs per year will be impacted through role redesign, not just outright elimination. The jobs aren't gone. They just look entirely different. You aren't the one swinging the shovel anymore. You are the one driving the tractor.
That is an apt analogy, I'll give you that. But we have to be honest about the mechanics of that shift.
Okay, what do you mean?
Operating that tractor requires a completely different and frankly much more rigorous skill set than swinging a shovel. And this is where we see a massive, dangerous disconnect in the current narrative.
A disconnect. Specifically around what?
Specifically around generative AI and where the money actually is right now.
Wait, I feel like every single day my feed is flooded with people claiming they are making mid-six figures just writing prompts. Like, is that not true?
Exactly. That is the illusion we have to shatter right now. You look at some of the sources we have, like there's an article from Poets and Quants claiming that prompt engineer is an easy job path
Right.
with low barriers to entry, supposedly averaging $137,699 a year. It paints this picture of a modern-day gold rush where you just need to know how to type a clever sentence into a chat box and you'll be rich.
Yeah, sign me up.
But then you look at the hard enterprise data. The Forrester 2026 predictions show that 25% of enterprise AI spend is currently being delayed or canceled outright.
Wait, delayed? That feels incredibly counterintuitive. If every single company is terrified of falling behind, and if they're laying off junior staff to pivot to AI, why are enterprise leaders suddenly hitting the brakes on spending?
Because companies aren't seeing real ROI.
Really?
Yeah. Only 15% of AI decision makers reported an actual EBITDA lift in the past year.
Okay, for our listeners who might not live in financial spreadsheets, explain EBITDA lift quickly.
Sure. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, it's a measure of a company's raw operational profitability. The core question is, did this new technology actually make us more money or definitively save us money on our core operation?
Right, did it move the needle?
And the answer for 85% of companies was no, it didn't. Enterprises spent 2024 and 2025 buying massive, expensive enterprise licenses, running pilots, and hiring people with basic, shallow AI literacy.
Because they expected these massive, magical productivity gains.
Exactly. They expected that just giving their marketing team ChatGPT would double their output overnight. But when those gains didn't materialize on the bottom line, the market started correcting. The market is violently punishing shallow AI knowledge right now.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean for you? It means the definition of knowing AI has fundamentally shifted. You can't just be the person who knows how to open a chat window.
No, you definitely can't.
Since the market is punishing shallow knowledge, what exactly do you need to know? Let's break down the new three-tier AI skills hierarchy that has emerged in 2026. This is the absolute core of what you need to understand to survive and thrive.
And we must stress that it is a strict hierarchy. You cannot skip to the top without a mastery of the foundation.
Right, you got to build the house on a solid foundation. So let's start with Tier 1, Essential. This is the new baseline. In 2024, knowing what ChatGPT was and how to log in made you look cutting edge to your boss.
Yeah, that was the honeymoon phase.
Today, Tier 1 is active. Daily fluency in the big three large language models. You need to be actively using ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And a specific critical update for 2026 that our sources highlight. Google Gemini 2.0 is now a distinct, absolute third pillar.
Yes. Gemini 2.0's multimodal capabilities have completely changed the baseline expectations for Tier 1.
Let's define multimodal, because people throw that word around a lot. What makes Gemini 2.0 different from just, typing text into a box?
Multimodal means it isn't just processing text. It is natively, simultaneously processing text, image, code, and audio all at once in the same neural network.
Which is huge.
It is. Older models required separate systems, right? Like one AI to transcribe your voice to text, another to read the text, maybe another to generate an image. Gemini 2.0 processes them all together natively. It has a massive context window.
Yeah, you can throw anything at it.
You can upload an entire year's worth of raw corporate financial PDFs, plus hours of recorded video meetings, plus your company's code base, and ask it to analyze it all at once to find operational bottlenecks. If you only know how to use ChatGPT for basic text generation, you are operating at a severe disadvantage.
And you have to know which tool to use for which specific job. You're a craftsman? These are your tools. ChatGPT is incredible for general tasks, brainstorming, data analysis using its advanced data features,
Yeah.
and using plugins.
Right.
Claude, specifically the Sonnet and Opus models, is widely considered the absolute best for analyzing massive, complex documents with high nuance, mimicking a specific writing voice flawlessly, and for complex coding tasks.
Absolutely.
And Gemini is your absolute powerhouse for real-time information, deep Google Workspace integration, and that heavy multimodal lifting you just mentioned. You need all three in your tool belt. You can't just be a ChatGPT person.
What's fascinating here is how the perception of prompt engineering has shifted entirely. Basic prompt engineering, knowing how to give the model persona context, specify a rigid output format, and use chain-of-thought instructions, that is now firmly in Tier 1. It is table stakes.
It's just expected. It's not a superpower anymore.
Precisely. To use another analogy, it's like knowing how to send an email with an attachment, or knowing how to use pivot tables in Excel.
Right.
20 years ago, knowing Excel made you a wizard. Today, if you put, "I know how to use email" on a resume, you'd be laughed out of the room. The ability to write a structured prompt is no longer a differentiator that commands a premium salary. It is the absolute minimum requirement to even sit at the desk.
Which perfectly transitions us to Tier 2, professional.
Yeah.
This is where you apply AI to your specific industry and actually start building automation. This isn't just chatting with a bot on a web browser.
No, this is much deeper.
This is using tools like Zapier, Make, or NAN. These are integration platforms that let you connect your AI to your email, your CRM like Salesforce, your project management software like Jira or Asana. You are building workflows.
And it requires knowing the specialized, compliant tools for your specific vertical. If you are in the legal field, for example, using general ChatGPT to analyze a client's confidential contract isn't just inefficient.
Oh, it's a disaster.
It's a massive malpractice liability. You need to be fluent in tools like CoCounsel by Thomson Reuters or Harvey AI. These are customized, secure, enterprise-grade tools, and knowing which tool to use is a critical survival skill.
Right. Our sources highlighted a huge cautionary tale there regarding the legal tech space. Can you explain what happened with Ross Intelligence?
It's a perfect example of why Tier 2 requires deep industry awareness, not just tech skills. Ross Intelligence was an early, heavily hyped darling of legal AI. Law firms built entire workflows around it.
Everyone was talking about it.
But Ross completely shut down due to a massive existential legal dispute with Westlaw over data scraping and copyright infringement.
Wow.
Yeah. Westlaw alleged Ross was essentially scraping their proprietary legal database to train its AI. The litigation crushed Ross. So if you were a paralegal or an operations manager and your entire workflow or your firm's entire operational pipeline was built exclusively on Ross, you were left scrambling overnight.
You had nothing.
Nothing. Tier 2 expertise means understanding the business stability, the data provenance, and the legal compliance of the tools you deploy. You have to vet the tool, not just use it.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting in Tier 2. The rise of agentic AI. This is the absolute hottest mid-tier skill right now. We are talking about AI agent frameworks like Crew AI, LangGraph, and AutoGen. We have to explain this carefully because it's a total paradigm shift.
It is the shift from automation to autonomy. Let me break down the difference. A standard Tier 2 workflow might use a tool like Zapier to say, when I get an email from a VIP client, trigger a webhook, have ChatGPT summarize the email, and post that summary into a specific Slack channel.
Simple enough.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a linear, rule-based automation. It is a straight line. If A happens, then do B. It's an assembly line conveyor belt.
Exactly. It's rigid.
Agentic AI is fundamentally different. Instead of a linear conveyor belt, imagine you are hiring a team of autonomous factory managers. You don't give them step-by-step rules. You give them a goal, tools, and constraints.
Okay.
With a framework like LangGraph, you construct a graph-based workflow. You orchestrate multiple specialized AI agents. You give one agent the ability to search the web, another agent a Python compiler, and another agent access to your database.
Right. They all have different skills.
Right. Exactly. You give the system a prompt like, research our top 3 competitors' pricing changes over the last month, cross-reference it with our current database, and write a strategic pricing adjustment proposal. The AI agents figure out the steps themselves.
That is wild.
They search, they write code to scrape data, they analyze it, and if they realize they made a mistake, they back up, try a different search query, and iterate until the goal is met.
And what blows my mind is that you don't even need to be a hardcore senior software engineer to use these frameworks anymore. The barrier has plummeted.
It really has.
Like with Crew AI, for example,
Yeah.
you can write simple scripts in Python to define these agents with distinct personas. You literally define one agent as the senior research analyst, one as the data scientist, and one as the harsh editor. You set them loose on a task, and they collaborate, critique each other's work, and deliver a final product.
And this represents a massive operational shift inside enterprises. Our data shows that 80% of enterprise AI projects are currently shifting from human-in-the-loop to human-on-the-loop.
Let's clarify those terms. Human in the loop versus human on the loop.
In a human-in-the-loop system, the automation does a chunk of work, stops, and a human has to push a button to approve the next step. It's a bottleneck.
Right, you're constantly babysitting it.
Exactly. In a human-on-the-loop system, which is what agentic AI enables, the system runs the entire complex process autonomously. The human acts as an overseer, a manager of the AI system, sitting above the loop. The human only steps in when the system flags an anomaly, encounters an edge case it can't resolve, or reaches a critical high-risk decision threshold that requires human judgment.
That is the tractor. You are managing the machine from the air-conditioned cab, looking at the dashboard, ensuring it's harvesting the right field. You are not out there digging the ditch.
Yes.
But if Tier 2 is building these incredible autonomous agents, what on earth is Tier 3? What is the advanced tier that sits above multi-agent architecture?
Tier 3 is where the real money is. This is the $150,000 to $250,000 plus salary tier that people are chasing. And to the immense shock and surprise of many people who spent all of 2024 taking online prompting courses, Tier 3 is not advanced prompt engineering.
It's not. I feel like people still think that's the absolute pinnacle.
It's a common misconception, but the data is unequivocal. The reason is simple. The large language models simply got too good.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in 2023, you had to trick the model with perfectly formatted arcane prompts to get a good result. It was fragile. But with models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet or Gemini 2.0, they got much, much better at understanding imprecise, messy, ambiguous human intent.
They can just figure out what you mean.
Exactly. They can infer what you want even if you don't format your prompt perfectly. Therefore, the market decided that paying someone $150,000 just to write perfect prompts was obsolete almost overnight.
So if the premier value isn't in talking to the machine, where did it go?
It went entirely to risk management, strategy, and compliance. Tier 3 is AI governance, risk assessment, AI system design, and regulatory compliance, specifically dealing with massive legislative frameworks like the EU AI Act or the patchwork of U.S. state privacy laws.
Okay, we need to dive deep into this. Why is governance suddenly the most lucrative, in-demand skill? Because honestly, to a lot of people, governance just sounds like boring corporate bureaucracy.
It might sound boring, but the stakes became literally existential for corporations. We have to look at the regulatory environment impartially, specifically the EU AI Act, which is now being strictly enforced. This isn't a slap on the wrist.
What are we talking about here?
Under the EU AI Act, a company deploying high-risk AI systems can face fines of up to 7% of their global annual turnover for non-compliance. 7%.
Wow, wait, for a multinational tech company or a massive bank, 7% of global turnover is billions of dollars. That is a company-ending fine.
Precisely. So, from the perspective of the CEO or the board of directors, the true value to the enterprise isn't the mid-level employee who can use Midjourney to generate a cool marketing image. That's a nice to have.
Right.
The true value, the person they will gladly pay $250,000 a year, is the person who can perform a rigorous algorithmic audit. The person who can map the complex data flows of these AI agents, mathematically mitigate bias in the models to prove to regulators that the company's AI hiring tool isn't discriminating.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or ensure the customer service AI isn't hallucinating illegal financial advice to a client. They build the rock-solid human oversight frameworks that protect the company from those billions of dollars in liabilities. That is the Tier 3 AI professional in 2026.
That makes perfect sense. The Wild West phase of just throwing AI at everything is over. The regulatory grown-up phase has begun.
Exactly.
So knowing these three tiers, Tier 1 essential fluency, Tier 2 professional automation and agents, and Tier 3 advanced governance and system design, how do you actually acquire these skills? We're going to walk you through the exact 90-day curriculum detailed in our sources. If you want to make yourself indispensable, grab a pen, because this is your roadmap.
And this requires dedicated, structured, daily effort. It is not a passive learning experience of just, listening to podcasts or watching YouTube videos.
Exactly. Month 1 is foundation. This Tier 1. Your tactical breakdown is this. You are going to spend roughly $60 a month out of pocket. Consider it an investment in yourself to get the premium versions of the big three. You need ChatGPT Plus, Claude Pro, and Gemini Advanced. It is the best $60 you will ever spend, and you are going to dedicate exactly 1 hour a day to this.
And what exactly are you doing with that hour? Because scrolling isn't learning.
Your goal in month 1 is highly specific. You need to save yourself 5 to 10 hours a week of actual work, and you must document exactly how you did it. You are going to practice what's called chain of thought prompting.
Let's explain chain of thought for the listener real quick.
Sure. Chain of thought is a technique where instead of just asking the AI for an answer, you explicitly instruct it to break down its reasoning step by step before it gives you the final output. You say, think through this step by step, outline your logic, and then provide the solution.
Yeah, right.
This forces the neural network to allocate more compute to the problem, dramatically reducing errors in logic or math. So you practice that. You practice giving highly structured instructions using Markdown. But most importantly, you take your daily mundane tasks, drafting long emails, summarizing boring PDF reports, to doing basic Excel data analysis, and you run the exact same prompt through all 3 models side by side.
Just see the differences.
Exactly. You compare the outputs, you build an intuition, you'll quickly realize, oh, ChatGPT gave me a very generic summary, but Claude picked up on the subtle passive-aggressive tone in this email chain, and Gemini instantly pulled in real-time data from the web to verify a claim. You learn the personality and strengths of each tool.
This raises an important question, though, which is the absolute necessity of critical evaluation during month 1. This is where a vast majority of people fail the transition. They marvel at the fluency and the confidence of the output, and their brain essentially just turns off. They stop thinking.
They just copy and paste it into an email and hit send.
Exactly, which is incredibly dangerous. AI hallucination, the system confidently and articulately inventing completely false information, is still very real in 2026. It is statistically less frequent than it was in 2023, but it is actually more insidious now because the models are so incredibly articulate.
They sound so sure of themselves.
They do. When a system writes a perfectly formatted, highly persuasive paragraph citing non-existent case law or fake statistics, it is very hard for a tired human brain to catch it. Month 1 requires building a deeply skeptical reflex. The more fluent and confident the output appears, the more rigorously you must verify it. Do not trust, verify.
Yeah, that's crucial.
You have to learn the specific failure modes of these models. They are exceptional at coding, pattern recognition, and synthesizing large volumes of information. But they are notoriously unreliable for niche factual recall, complex spatial logic puzzles, or anything requiring true common sense without strict guardrails.
Trust, but verify. Or really just verify. Don't trust at all. So that's month 1. You are fluent, you are cautious, you know the big 3, and you buy yourself 5 to 10 extra hours a week. Now we move to month 2. Professional tools. This is tier 2. Now, you transition from playing with text to building systems.
This is where you transition from being a user of AI to an architect of AI workflows.
Yes. You are going to master 2 to 3 industry-specific tools for your vertical. So if you are in marketing, maybe that's Jasper or specific AI SEO tools. If you're in HR, maybe it's an AI screening compliance tool. And you're going to automate workflows using platforms like Zapier, Make, or dive into a framework like Crow AI. Your goal for month 2 is to build a fully functional AI agent or an automated workflow for a specific repetitive business process that you currently handle manually.
And the success metric here is crucial.
You want to save 10 to 15 hours a week. That's 2 full working days reclaimed.
But you must document the exact ROI, return on investment, of your automation. This is a recurring, heavily emphasized theme in all the 2026 labor market reports we analyzed. Businesses do not care about the technology itself.
They really don't.
Your CEO does not care that you used a cool LangGraph multi-agent framework. They do not care about your code. They care about the time and money saved. You need to build what we call an AI impact portfolio.
What does that look like in practice?
When you go to a performance review, you need to be able to say, I automated the weekly cross-departmental reporting process. It historically took 12 hours of manual data entry and formatting. It now takes 15 minutes of autonomous AI processing via Zapier and API calls, plus 1 hour of human review. That saves the company exactly $3,000 per month in raw labor costs and eliminates human error. That is how you prove unassailable value.
Quantifiable impact. That is your shield against layoffs. If you save the company $36,000 a year with one script, they aren't letting you go. So you've got your foundation, you've built your automations, you're saving time. Now we reach month 3, advanced strategy. This is tier 3.
This is the transition to leadership and enterprise system design.
In month 3, You are learning AI system design and multi-agent architecture from a strategic bird's eye view. You are learning how to map a massive business process. For example, let's say you are revamping your company's entire customer service department. You don't just say to the IT guy, let AI do it.
No, that's a recipe for disaster.
You map out exactly what the AI handles, initial customer inquiries, routing tickets, basic sentiment detection, checking order status, and you map out exactly what the human handles, complex problem solving, deep emotional empathy, high-value retention negotiations, and escalations. You're designing the intricate collaboration between human and machine.
And crucially, this month must include an understanding of governance. If you are designing these systems, you need to understand how to write a comprehensive AI implementation proposal. That proposal cannot just be a technical spec sheet of what APIs you need.
Right.
It must include a rigorous cost-benefit analysis. It must include exhaustive risk assessments for data privacy. Where is the customer data going? Is the API zero retention? It must assess algorithmic bias. And it must detail the human oversight frameworks. If the AI agent makes a mistake and promises a customer a refund they aren't entitled to, who is accountable?
Someone has to be.
Exactly. How is the system audited, and how is the error corrected before it impacts the customer or violates a consumer protection regulation?
You're learning how to be the adult in the room when everyone else is just wildly chasing the shiny new tech toy. You're the one bringing process, safety, and strategy. That is the 90-day plan. Foundation, professional tools, advanced strategy. But once you've done the 90 days, you face a brand new, very real problem.
How to prove it?
Exactly. How do you actually prove this to a hiring manager? Because right now, hiring managers are absolutely drowning in resumes, and everybody and their mother claims to be an AI expert because they use ChatGPT to write a cover letter.
Let's dive into the 2026 certification landscape and figure out where you should actually spend your time and your money to stand out.
This is a heavily debated topic in the industry right now, especially the value of formal, expensive master's degrees versus agile, fast-paced certifications.
Right, the master's degree debate. Does everyone need to quit their job and go back to school to get a master's in computer science or data science?
Not necessarily, but we have to look closely at the Birchworks report from our stack. It shows that currently a massive 64% of the dedicated AI workforce holds a master's degree.
64%.
That's huge.
It has become a pragmatic, accepted standard for production-ready AI work, particularly outside of the massive tech giants like Google or Meta, who have their own internal vetting processes.
So a PhD isn't required. I think a lot of people assume AI is only for math PhDs.
Yeah. A PhD is mostly required for fundamental AI research. You know, the people at OpenAI or Anthropic inventing completely new neural network architectures or working on quantum ML. But for applied AI, taking those existing pre-trained models and making them work securely for a regional bank, a logistics company, or a hospital network, a master's degree is often the standard employers look for.
Okay, but what if you don't have the time or money for a master's right now?
Well, and this is the good news for the listener. Employers are increasingly recognizing intensive boot camps, applied technical certifications, and a demonstrable open-source GitHub portfolio as equivalent signals of expertise. They essentially have to, because the technology moves entirely too fast for traditional four-year university curricula to keep up.
By the time a university finalizes a syllabus on AI, the technology is 2 generations old. Okay, so if we look at the Agile certification stack, let's break it down by level. For entry level, to just get past the automated HR filters and prove you aren't completely illiterate, our sources say the Google AI Essentials course, which is very accessible, about $49 on Coursera, and the Microsoft AI Fundamentals cert are still highly valid.
Yeah.
They are perfect for non-technical professionals, say a project manager or a sales director, who just need to prove to their boss they have a solid foundation.
They are useful, yes. They understand the basic vocabulary, the difference between generative AI and predictive machine learning, and the basic mechanics of how a transformer model works. But let's be clear, they will not get you a premium salary. They just get you in the door.
Right. Now, for the professional level, Tier 2, if you want to be actually building things, you need cloud AI certs from AWS or Microsoft Azure or the IBM AI Engineering Certificate. That IBM one is also very accessible, around $49 a month, and it's heavily focused on building a GitHub-ready portfolio of real functioning projects.
That portfolio is the key differentiator. A certification that just proves you memorized definitions and passed a multiple choice test is far less valuable to a hiring manager than a certification that results in functioning code or an active workflow that you can pull up on your laptop and show them during an interview.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The advanced level. the gold mine. Let me give you an analogy to understand what's happening right now. Think back 10 or 15 years ago in cybersecurity. There were a million different random certs out there. But eventually, the industry consolidated. The CISSP, the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, became the absolute, undisputed gold standard.
If you had it, you got hired.
Exactly. If you had the CISSP, you got the job. It was your golden ticket. Right now, in 2026, the equivalent for the AI industry is the IAPP AI Governance Professional, or AIG certification.
Yes. The International Association of Privacy Professionals, they recognize the massive pivot from pure tech to governance and compliance very early on, and they established the standard.
If you want to unlock those $150,000 to $250,000 plus roles we talked about, the AIG is the key. It proves definitively that you understand the complex regulatory environment, specifically the nuances of the EU AI Act, global data sovereignty laws, and enterprise risk frameworks. Also, the PMI-CPMAI, the Project Management Institute certification for managing AI projects, is becoming absolutely vital for senior project managers who are tasked with leading these massive multi-million-dollar AI integrations across entire companies.
But we have to issue a very, very strong warning here based on the market data. We call it the Commodore warning, because you do not want to be the person holding a degree in operating a Commodore 64 when the Macintosh comes out.
Yes, everyone listening, please listen to this closely before you swipe your credit card.
Do not waste your money on expensive prompt engineering certifications. There are institutions and online gurus charging thousands of dollars for these courses right now. As the market data from Forrester and Robert Half clearly shows, these skills have been entirely commoditized.
They are a trap.
They really are. The people buying these certs are fighting the 2024 war in 2026. The market simply expects you to know how to prompt an LLM. It will not pay you a premium for a piece of paper that says you know how to talk to a chatbot. Your limited training budget and your time must be spent higher up the stack on integration, multi-agent system design, or governance.
Save your money. Seriously. So we've given you the map, the 90-day plan, the exact certifications to target, and the ones to avoid. But any good map also shows you where the landmines are hidden. Let's look at the 6 fatal mistakes people make when trying to navigate this curriculum and how it applies to your specific industry.
These mistakes are incredibly common, and they are the primary reason we see a staggering 85% attrition or failure rate in early enterprise AI projects. People stumble into these traps constantly.
Mistake number 1, learning but not doing. We call this tutorial hell. You watch 50 hours of YouTube videos about AI agents, you take 3 Coursera classes, you read every newsletter, but you never actually apply it to your daily work.
Which defeats the purpose.
We see this all the time. A marketing director will take a 10-week course on AI strategy, but then go back to work and manually write their weekly reports in Word.
Knowledge without application degrades rapidly. If you aren't firing up the tools to solve real, messy, unstructured business problems, you are just accumulating trivia. You have to get your hands dirty with the technology.
Mistake number 2, prioritizing technical over practical.
This happens frequently when non-engineers, say a financial analyst or an HR manager, panic and decide they need to learn Python, calculus, and neural network architecture from scratch before they can use AI.
Which is overwhelming.
Yes. Unless you are specifically aiming to pivot your career to become a machine learning engineer, your time is vastly better spent learning how to expertly use the off-the-shelf tools that already exist to optimize your specific business function. Don't learn how to build the engine, learn how to drive the car expertly.
Mistake number 3, and you hammered this earlier, not documenting your results. You have to build that AI impact portfolio with quantified before and after metrics. If you automate a process but you can't point to a spreadsheet and prove you save the company 40 hours a month, your skills are completely invisible to senior management. You have to be your own PR firm.
Mistake number 4 is using the wrong tools for your specific industry and ignoring compliance. We discussed the Ross intelligence failure, but it's much broader and more dangerous than that.
Give us an example.
Imagine an HR representative who decides to use the free public version of ChatGPT to summarize employee performance reviews or medical leave documents. By doing that, they have just uploaded highly confidential personally identifiable information, or PII, into a public model's training data. That is a massive data breach.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
You must know the compliant, secure, enterprise-grade, zero-retention tools built for your sector. Ignorance here isn't just a mistake, it's a fireable liability.
Mistake number 5, hoarding knowledge instead of sharing it internally. The people who get promoted to directorships in 2026 are the AI champions. They are the ones who figure out a brilliant automation workflow for their desk and then host a lunch and learn to teach their entire department how to use it. You become a multiplier for the company's productivity, not just an individual contributor.
And finally, mistake number 6, which is the massive 2026 update, treating prompt engineering as the final destination instead of a stepping stone. As we've stressed repeatedly, many people spent 2024 and 2025 becoming prompt experts, only to find the market pulled the rug out from under them. You must keep moving up the stack to governance, risk, and system design.
So what does this all mean? How do you actually apply this to your specific desk right now, today? Let's look at a few concrete examples from the sources of how role redesign is actually playing out. If you are a data scientist, the reality is that the raw math, the data cleaning, the basic regression models, the AI is doing that autonomously now.
Yeah.
The grunt work is gone. You must become an AI-augmented data scientist with governance expertise. You aren't just sitting in Jupyter notebooks cleaning messy CSV files for hours. You're orchestrating a team of AI agents to clean the data. And you are spending your time ensuring the resulting predictive models are compliant, explainable to regulators, and mathematically unbiased. And if you are a marketer, the shift is profound. You use AI for the high-volume, low-tier execution. You use it to generate 50 different variations of Facebook ad copy or write basic SEO-optimized blog outlines. But your daily focus shifts entirely to creative direction, overall brand architecture, understanding deep human psychology and strategy. You are no longer the junior copywriter grinding out words. You are the editor-in-chief, directing a team of very fast, somewhat naive AI writers.
In almost every single knowledge worker industry, the pattern is exactly the same. The AI subsumes the execution of the routine, the repetitive, and the predictable. The human professional must elevate to orchestration, complex strategy, ethical governance, and human connection.
Exactly. You drive the tractor. Which brings us to our actionable takeaway for this deep dive. We've given you a lot of theory and a lot of macro data, but here's your final concrete tactical instruction. Do not spend the next 90 days learning about AI. Do not just read articles. Spend the next 90 days using AI for real work.
That's the key.
Start tomorrow morning with just one single task. Take a routine email, a weekly report, a basic spreadsheet analysis, and instead of doing it manually the way you always have, force yourself to figure out how to do it with ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. It will probably take you longer the first time. That's fine. Document the process. Document how long it took. That is day 1 of your 90-day plan. Get the basics in month 1, get professional with automation in month 2, and get strategic with governance in month 3.
The overarching reality we must all accept is a paradox. The tools themselves are more accessible and easier to use than ever before. But because they are so easy to use, the baseline expectation for every employee has risen. The bar for real expertise, the ability to govern these complex autonomous systems, design multi-agent architectures, and implement them strategically across an enterprise without exposing the company to massive legal or operational risk, that bar has gone up permanently.
It's a new world, and the blueprint is now in your hands. But before we wrap up, I want to toss it over to you for one final thought. What is the horizon line here?
Well, if we connect everything we've discussed to the bigger picture, we are currently in a phase where we are enthusiastically building AI agents to handle our individual workflows. That is Tier 2. But the technological trajectory is aggressively clear. Very soon, we will be building advanced AI agents whose sole dedicated purpose is to manage, audit, and correct other AI agents.
Oh, wow.
And when that autonomous management layer is fully functional and deployed in the enterprise, it raises a profound, uncomfortable question. What is the fate of the human middle manager whose primary or perhaps only skill is delegating tasks, tracking KPIs, and monitoring the progress of subordinates? If the subordinates are AI and the manager tracking the KPIs is an AI, will the very human act of delegation become a completely obsolete skill?
That is a heavy, heavy thought to end on, but one we all need to be considering as we map out our careers. That's all for today's deep dive into your AI curriculum playbook. Keep pushing forward, keep building that portfolio, and don't forget to subscribe to Surviving AI on YouTube at Surviving AI Risk. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.